Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the English news from Djibouti Channel. They are the top source of our editions tonight. The President of the Republic presided over the stone-laying ceremony of the project to build 500 housing. An Yemen government delegation visited Sweden to participate in peace talks. That were our top stories, and now let's get to the details. An important ceremony of laying this foundation stone for the constructions of some 500 social housing units took place this morning at kilometer 13. The head of state, accompanied by the first lady of the country, proceeded to the laying of this first stone. Many senior officials, including the Prime Minister and the Minister of Housing, as well as the Minister delegated to the Minister of Housing, Urban Planning and Environment in charge of housing, took part in the ceremony. The social housing will be built on the financing of FAIT, the Arabic Fund of Economy and Social Development, for an estimated cost of 3.7 billion of our francs. It's near the same place that the President of the Republic had also proceeded last week to launch the project of constructions for a luxury residential city that will finance the South African Bank. The government is thus committed to meeting the housing needs or demands of the ordinary or average citizen, that the demand of the middle classes or the wealthy classes.
Kubal geedigeena marna kaabin maaye gogol xaadka maantana goobtani la dhagax dhigay
ismayaal maguurana ka hirgalaya kordhow sabolnimo ka gudubnaye gaawaha wuxuu la dhereg gaawaha wuxuu la dherege
Kubal geedigeena marna kaabin maaye gogol xaadka maantana goobtani la dhagax dhigay
ismayaal maguurana ka hirgalaya kordhow sabolnimo ka gudubnaye gaawaha wuxuu la dhereg gaawaha wuxuu la dherege gaawaha wuxuu la dhereg gaawaha wuxuu la dherege gaawaha wuxuu la dhereg gaawaha wuxuu la dherege gaawaha wuxuu la dhereg.
Speaking in turn, the Minister of Housing, Urbanism and the Environment, Mr. Musa Mohammed Ahmed, said that this initiative aims to partially fill the housing deficit that our country knows. Each citizens before to enjoy decent housing in our nations. During also her speech, Mrs. Amina Abdi, Minister Delegate for Housing, said that the housing issues was at the heart of public policy in our country. According to her, the government's approach is to multiply social housing projects to meet both the demands and honor the commitment of the head of state, give each family a decent roof. In his turn, the President of the Republic, His Excellency Mr. Ismail Omar Guelleh, focused his interventions on the economic and social rights of the citizen, recalling that the right to education, health and work, as well as to obtaining a roof where the man shelters himself and his family, are obligations that public officials must strive to satisfy.
الصلاة والسلام على رسوله الأمين سيدنا حبيبنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Mesdames et messieurs, c'est toujours une satisfaction de venir sur le terrain et de voir des projets aussi importants prendre forme.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is always a satisfaction to come and to see such important project take shape. To know that within a short time, hundreds of housing will come out of the ground and will house Djiboutian families. That will be the setting of their life, of their projects for the years to come. Housing remain a premise of all things. It conditions basic rights such as employment and health. That's why housing remain by far one of the biggest concern of our fellow citizens after employment. This is not only a major expense for the home, but it's also a prerequisite for a dignified and decent life. Also, access to housing should not be a dream. It is a human right. Our fellow citizens must have an affordable housing based on their income. The housing shortage in this country is becoming a widening inequality. This prevents social mobility and prevents people from realizing their potential. Young people or even poor households are the first to suffer from the real estate crisis or the land price, which has become exorbitant. But also it undermines something less tangible, but equally important to them, the relationship to the community, the sense of belonging, the responsibility that arises from owning one's own home or from long-term renting to a home. Solving the crisis, the housing crisis, is therefore a necessity both economically and socially. It is a top priority for the government. In the face of inflation and the tension that are shaking the real estate sector, we have no choice but to build. Still, in all ways, we must therefore continue our effort to do much better.
The President of the Republic stressed that the time of precarious or the degraded habits are quickly replaced. He assured that he will go all the way to meet the housing demands of his fellow citizens.
Devant l'inflation et les tensions qui agitent le secteur de l'immobilier, nous n'avons de choix que celui de construire, encore et toujours.
Ladies and gentlemen, acting on all fronts, on all the parameters that are taken into account in home ownership by continuing to make land available, by relaxing building rules and procedures and access to finance through lowering interest rate for first-time buyers in the context of negotiation with the banking sector, but also act on the rental housing stock and encourage investors from the public and the private sector. These are all levers that we must work to provide to the average Djiboutians housing solutions they need so much, because there is an urgency. On this issue of housing, I call on landlords who unduly value their property to empathize with their modest tenants who sometimes spend more than half of their income on housing. Building housing is building the future of this country and looking at it with more optimism and enthusiasm. Housing programs for all help to structure the public space and create a pleasant and quality living environment. As the minister pointed out, when it comes to the productions of new housings, the government goal is ambitious. The will that is ours, the will that is mine, is to go to the end, to put place all the tools so that in matter of response to the Djiboutians, when it comes to housing, we are there.
Mettre en place tous les outils en matière de réponse aux Djiboutiens sur l'habitat, nous soyons là aussi à la hauteur des exigences de nos compatriotes. Je vous remercie.
In order to welcome future residents in good conditions, public facilities are planned, including a health center, a security station, and an annex of the civil protections.
waa dhowr mar waxaan halkan ku soo noqnoqonay waxaan ugu soo noqonaynaa waxa weeyaan xanuun haysta weey.
My fellow citizens, several times we came to this place. Today our main concern is access to social housing for all categories of the population. Access to land ownership improve the moral of our fellow citizens. For those who want to start a family, the first thing is to buy a place to live. We have invested significant funds for housing constructions to improve access to land ownership. Those who can afford once at a time can do it, but they can do it also in 20 to 30 years. To improve access to housings, we have decreed that the year 2018 will be the years of housing and will continue on this way. We will promote access to housing based on the situation of each citizen so that every citizen can have a decent life. Today, laying the stone will make available 500 social housing units. We thank the private sector who took the initiative to support our housing policy by investing in building it. The others will follow on the same path. In my speech, I have mentioned the case of landowners to whom I ask to have a pity on tenants in needs. To those in needs, it will not be necessary to ask them exorbitant rents which are not within their reach. You will be rewarded with the goods of God. We have decreed 2018 the years of housing, and we will renew by decreeing the year 2019. On those words, the head of state has concluded this morning his speech.
In order to welcome future residents in good conditions, public facilities are planned, including a health center, a security stations, an annex of civil protections, a bus stations, a community development center, as well as a sports center and various recreational playgrounds, a nursery for toddlers, and a nursery school complete all project social and community facilities. The first phase consists of construction of 500 apartments, for which 440 apartments are financed by the Arab Fund of Economic and Social Development, and the remainder will be supported by the Agency of Urban Rehabilitations and Social Housing. The President also received today, late in the morning, the Director General of Oxford Business Group, Mr. Andrews Jeffrey. The later officials gave him the last report from the organization working with the World Bank on economic and commercial practices in Djibouti. The business world condition investment in several aspects such as taxation, labor, and the attractiveness of the country, good governance practices, and many other fields. The Oxford Business Group is a well-known economic analysis and consulting firm. It should be remembered that the first report Oxford Businesses Oxford Businesses Group on Djibouti was made 2 years ago in 2016. To communication advisor to the head of state, Mr. Naguib Ali Tahir and Ali Mohammed Dimbiyo attended the meeting. After the meeting with the President Gili, the CEO of Oxford Businesses Group made a statement to the press. He said that like this.
Of meeting His Excellency the President in order to discuss the foreign investment opportunities in Djibouti. Now, foreign investors are looking for three things. They're looking for stability, they're looking for security, and they're looking for growth. And right now, Djibouti offers all three of these in abundance. And what Oxford Business Group's research, which has been done in order to get that message across to the Anglo-Saxon English-speaking world that until now doesn't really know the opportunities that exist in Djibouti. So there was a clear message from the President, which is that Djibouti is open for foreign investments. Come on in and take advantage of this situation. We have an economic policy where we're seeing a reduction in bureaucracy. We're trying to make the economic environment easier for foreign investors. Okay, we've had a huge improvement in infrastructure. We have these 3 ports that have been completed over the last 2 years. We have a free trade zone now, which is under construction. So every day we see the environment here improving for foreign investors. So there's a clear message now that we'd like to get across. Come here, as Oxford Business Group has, enjoy this fabulous country and take advantage of the opportunities that exist.
In his intervention, he reported on the progress made by the Republic in terms of the ability to comply with all the requirements of commercial practice and optimal businesses. The Republic of Djibouti had the advantage of being stable and security for investment. Is all the more profile to involve quick quickly into commercials, hub and businesses that it has recently invested in highly successful sectors such as energy, telecommunication, as well as transport and logistics. Following the death for the former U.S. George W. Bush, the Prime Minister went yesterday to the American Embassy to sign the Register of Condolence. The Prime Minister Abdul Qadir Kamil Mohammed extended his sincere condolence to the American Ambassador, Mr. Larry Anglais. Father George died last Friday, November 30, at the age of 94. And after that, more about national news. The president received more than the president of the Chamber of Commerce received delegations from international fairs would develop to attract more regional and international campaigns in the coming years. Will help strengthen our strategic locations. And now we move on continental news. A Yemeni government delegation left the Saudi capital Riyadh early Wednesday for Sweden, where it's due to participate in peace talks with Houthi rebels and their UN offices.
Member team from the Saudi-paid government headed by Foreign Minister Khalid Al-Yamani left Riyadh earlier Wednesday. The government delegation was carrying the hope of the Yemeni people to achieve a sustainable peace. The head of exiled President Abdurrabbu Mansour had the office Abdullah Al-Mini. The delegation had delayed its departure until the rebels had arrived in Stockholm after they failed to show up for the last UN bid to convene peace talks in September, complaining they had received insufficient currency of safe passage through the blockade imposed by Saudi-led coalition since March 2015, source close to the government.
Here we'll finish our editions tonight. Thank you and goodbye.